Hey there, my name is Lori Schmitz and I'm an Evaluation Specialist with the Mid-America Prevention Technology Transfer Center. We are with the Partnerships and Prevention Science Institute with Iowa State University. Today we're going to look at getting started with Azure Maps and Microsoft Power BI with a focus on evaluation and monitoring for decision making and process improvement. So first, a little housekeeping. This training is supported by SAMHSA and the cooperative agreement is listed in the center of the slide. Next, I'd like to share a little bit about the PTTC network. The network aims to strengthen and expand substance misuse prevention efforts by delivering training and resources to professionals in the field. It emphasizes quality enhancement, professional assistance, and next-gen engagement as its three pillars. The network also focuses on capacity building and fostering a sustainable prevention workforce. Here is a brief overview of the network structure. It comprises of 10 regional centers across the U.S., including a national coordinating office. Each regional center tailors its efforts to meet the unique needs of local prevention professionals. Mid-America is Region 7, and we are at Iowa State University. And we cover Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri. Learning objectives for today. We're going to look at an overview of Power BI and the Azure Map, what is needed in a data set for the Azure Map, how to connect that Excel data source, and then also finally look at formatting features in the Azure Map. So what is Power BI? Power BI is a business analytics tool developed by Microsoft. It enables us to visualize data and share insights with others. It allows us to connect hundreds of sources, but we are going to focus on Excel today because Excel is a main tool that we use in our field. But in the end, you can turn raw, messy data into interactive dashboards and reports. So there are two components of Power BI. There's desktop and service. Think of desktop as where you build your reports and you model your data. It's like a file on your desktop that you can work in, and then when you're ready you can publish it to Power BI Service, which is the online sharing and collaboration side. Now Power BI Desktop is free to download, which will show you how to do that. And then Power BI Service is usually fee-based, so you'd have to check with your organization to see if you have access to Service. Evaluation, Power BI, and the power of maps. The Azure Map is an excellent visual to aid in decision making and process improvement, but you might wonder, what is an Azure Map? If you look it up online, technically they say it's a geospatial platform by Microsoft, but in more simple terms, think of it as just a visual option in Power BI where you can view data by location. So what else can maps do? You can quickly see where issues are concentrated, for example, where substance misuse rates are higher or where program participation is lower. You can improve communication due to the ease of use, so it allows you to geographically visualize progress, and really they are just easier to understand than a table of numbers, very intuitive for non-technical audiences. This image on the right is an example of a map that we'll actually create in a little bit here. Simply regional survey responses of training data. So what else? Targeting and resource allocation. Maps help with highlighting areas with the greatest need. It helps improve the efficient use of resources using targeted approaches. It helps support monitoring over time, so you can track program reach across different locations and over time. With Excel, there's filtering that you can do in Power BI with that time field. And you can integrate with qualitative data, so you have the ability to see demographic, health, and outcome data spatially. Pretty cool. So where do I find Power BI Desktop? Power BI Desktop is free to download, so in any browser, search for Microsoft Power BI Download, and I have a link in the slide here that should take us there. So this takes us to the Microsoft website. Simply click Download Power BI Desktop, download PBI Desktop for short, and go through the usual process of downloading software to your computer. Okay, so once you have Power BI downloaded and opened on your computer, this is the default view that you'll see when you open it up. It's like it's screaming to add data to your report. There's different ways you can do that. You can import data from Excel from this button, or there's also a Get Data up here and choose Excel. But before we do any of that, we want to make sure we have what we need in our data source in order for the map to work. So first, let's look at the visualizations pane over here on the right and find the Azure map. So if you notice, you hover over these and it shows you what the different visuals are. I'm going to go right to the Azure map and click on it. Notice it brought up the visual. I'm going to expand it. It doesn't look like a lot right now since we have not set up any data in here yet. But over here on the right, you'll see the fields that are needed. Not all of these are needed. The two that are definitely needed are latitude and longitude. So we want to know that. And then also a great feature of maps is seeing scalable data. So we could also use a field called response ID, which I'll show you, which will help scale the data and show the number of responses by location. So switching over to our data set, we want to make sure we have latitude and longitude in here. And so far, we do not have it. We have a recorded date, response ID, which is that unique ID for the surveys, city and state, scope of impact, and community type. So how do we get to latitude and longitude? I wanted to share this with you because in case you do not have latitude and longitude automatically downloaded from Qualtrics or another source, there is a way to get to it. So highlight city and state, and if you don't have city and state in one column, you'll have to combine them together. Highlight city and state, go to Data, Geography. And wait a minute, and notice it adds a little card to each city and state. You can click on one of those cards and you see Des Moines, Iowa pops up, and if you scroll down, voila, there's latitude and longitude. So in order to import it into Power BI, we need latitude and longitude in separate columns. So how do we do that? What you'll want to do is to create a table. So go Insert, Table. Okay. Yes. And notice how there is a plus sign to the upper right of the table. Click that, click latitude, and click it again, and longitude. And now you have latitude and longitude in your data set. Power BI doesn't love tables or the cards, so what I'm going to do is copy and paste special this data into a new tab. And notice my date went wonky. I'm going to switch that back to date. And then I'm also going to remove the card from here. So right click, data type, convert to text. And now we have all the survey data we need, plus these two new columns. Okay, back into Power BI. Now we can import data from Excel. I'm going to click Import Data from Excel, choose my maps data that I just worked on, click Open. The map is in use, or the maps data is in use. It's just a friendly little reminder to close out your data before you open and add it to Power BI. Takes a minute. I have a number of sheets here based on what I've been working in, but I know my final with underscore latitude and longitude has what I need. And notice it looks a lot like Excel. This is exactly what we just worked on. So you can either load, transform data, or cancel. We are going to load transform data, takes you into Power Query. We're not going to get to that in this training, but Power Query is where you can mold and shape data in different ways. So I'm going to go ahead and click load. Thinks about it for a second. Creating connection and loading data to model. 50 rows loaded, and I know that's what I had in my data set. So now it tells you, let's build visuals with your data. Quick overview of Power BI. On the left pane here, there's the report view, which is where we can drag in different visuals and build different visuals. There's the table view, which shows the data that we just pulled in. And then there's a model view. We pulled in one sheet. You can pull in multiple sheets and connect them via relationships. It can become very complicated or as easy as you'd like, but we just have one sheet here. So back to report view. And at the top, similar to Excel, there's a number of different things you can do, but we're going to stick to a very beginning and simple overview of the Azure Map visual. So let's go over to the visualization pane and find the Azure Map again. It's right here in this arrow. Click on it. I'm going to expand this again. And now we imported our data. And on the data pane here, we can click the arrow down and see all the fields we have available to drag and drop. I'm going to drag latitude to latitude, longitude to longitude, and we have a map already. Now, I had talked about that scalability piece. Now, if I bring response ID, which was that unique ID, to size, watch how the bubbles change size. So now it's looking at the number of surveys per location. So you hover over, you can see in this area there were 3 surveys. This area there were 4. And this area there were 1. There was 1. So another cool thing about Power BI are tooltips. We could add a tooltip, city-state tooltip. And now if you hover over the bubble, there is the first city-state is Ames, Iowa. Looks like here is Sioux City, Iowa. So now that we have a basic map, we're going to go over and look at formatting our visual. There's 2 options here, the visual and general. So if you have multiple different visuals, say you have bar charts and pie charts and a whole number of different visuals on here, you have to be clicked on the visual to format each one individually. So first of all, with map settings, there's a number of different styles. The default is grayscale light, which I really prefer in the end, but you could change it to road, you can change it to satellite. This isn't very usable for us. There's a night option. Again, not very usable. I like the simplicity of grayscale light, and it's very readable too. So we'll stick with that. There's the auto zoom feature. I always keep it on, but I'll show you what it does when it's off. It makes you manually zoom in and out. So we'll turn that back on. It's different controls and layer settings. A lot of this is playing around with the data to see what insights and what visually gives you those insights to share with others and be able to really make impactful decisions. So going down the visual format pane here, there's the bubble layer. If you turn that off, it disappears. So you have to have the bubble layer on or cluster bubbles on to get that to work, but there's different things you can do with size of your bubbles. Say you want the largest to be the minimum and maximum to be different, or to be closer together actually, you can do that. But it seems like there's a lot more to see when the maximum's a bit higher. There's shape and transparency options. Colors. Color is a very impactful one you can change right away. Say you'd like red, you can change it to red, or if your organization has a specific color palette, you can change the hex or the red, green, blue. I'm going to change this to a certain green, like that. You can put borders around your bubbles. Maybe you'd like a darker border, something like that. Transparency, width, blur, a number of different things to play with. Okay, so cluster bubbles. So let's turn cluster bubbles on. Notice how it reduced the number of bubbles but put numbers in there. So it's clustering survey responses that are closer together by latitude and longitude. So that's just another way to look at it. I'm going to turn cluster bubbles off, and let's turn heat map on. See how that put that heat behind each bubble. Well, the heat map is set as a color of blue right now, so that's not the best visually looking, but you can see how that works. So if we turn off bubble layer and just keep the heat map on, you can see how it's a little bit darker blue, and this is all changeable too by color, by intensity of the heat map. But you can see that there are more surveys taken in the Des Moines area than say up here in Northeast Iowa. So let's turn heat map off and turn the bubble layer back on. We still have our greenish bubbles. "3D column layer." That's an interesting one. It depends how you want it to look. But if you turn 3D column, it looks like, you know, a bunch of skyscrapers, and this is way too busy right now. In this case, I would definitely turn off the bubble layer and just keep the 3D. But in general, I don't use this one a lot. I'm going to turn off the 3D and turn the bubble layer back on. Just a fun, cool feature. And there's also, depending on the data and what you're trying to find, there's a traffic layer also. So now we've gone over how to put data in Power BI, create a simple Azure map. Finally, let's change the titles. Best practices for titles for visual data visualization is for them to be concise and descriptive. So let's go ahead and update the title. Under Visualization pane, to the right of Visual is the General tab. See, there's an area for title. It's currently on. It toggles off if you'd like. But here in the text is where we can change the name of the title. Let's call this Q2 Mid-America Survey Responses. And similar to a lot of other areas of Power BI, you can change headings, you can make it larger, you can bold, change the color if you'd like. There's a number, you can even turn on subtitles if you want to be a little more descriptive of the visual. You can turn on a subtitle and edit that as well. So let's say we are ready to publish and share with others. If you have a Power BI service, up here in the top ribbon, you can go up to Publish, click Publish, and it goes to Power BI service. And if you don't have Power BI service, you could always share this file with others as well. So we are going to switch over to the PowerPoint. And and look at a few supplemental training materials before we end here. Again, this is the Power BI default view. You have different views, the ribbon at the top similar to Excel, filters, which we didn't get into a lot, but you can do a lot with filtering, all the different visualization options, and here is where your data loads. Other helpful resources. So there are many tutorials on the web for Power BI. I've learned so much from, for example, Guy in a Cube. If you have a question about how to do anything, he often has a video. Microsoft Learn for Power BI is an excellent Power BI beginner course. And then Pragmatic Works Power BI Maps is also very helpful with tips and tricks, specifically for maps, and may go into a little further in depth. Thank you for your time today. If you have any questions at all, feel free to contact me. Here is my information and my email address. Again, have a wonderful day.